Hello, Growing Up Crazy, November something 2022. I'm not even sure exactly what day it is. I'm back at the work. You can probably hear the sound of a generator running in the background. I'm on a boat right now, and this is just for a request that a friend of mine made because I haven't made a Growing Up Crazy story in a while because I've been on to something different. But as a result of a request, here's a Growing Up Crazy story. And I wanted to start with the first one. It wouldn't be the first one that ever happened, but the first time I think when I became me. I'm not really sure. But I do have a feeling that this is important along the process because a lot of people have experiences, particularly when young. I do believe that most children actually have spiritual experiences. And it's just a question of whether or not you pursue them and also the manner in which you pursue it that ends up determining whether or not we actually get put on this path. So when I was a kid, as you know, if you've listened, if not, I had a lot of fear, and I began when I was a child trying to really face up to my fear. I would stand in dark places. I would go in the bathroom. The bathroom in the house that I grew up in was internal, so it could go pitch black if you went in there and shut the door, and there was this ginormous mirror in front of it, and I've always detested mirrors. When I was a child, I've really detested mirrors, especially mirrors in the dark. But that's a different Growing Up Crazy story. We'll get into that one later. But, yeah, because I guess that would be the beginning, is all the mirror stories from childhood. We'll get into those later, but this one I used to sit up at night during thunderstorms because I've always fascinated by storms. I always loved weather and outside and nature, and I used to stare out the window in my childhood bedroom at the two giant oak trees that were in the neighbor's backyard. And this was also when The Land Before Time had come out. So I would imagine that one would be the T-Rex and the other one the Brontosaurus. So my imagination could almost like make them seem that way. And that when the wind was blowing them, they would be fighting. And just like in The Land Before Time. And I would just sit there, look out the window and watch it. Then I realized that I was scared, of the outside. I was a very young child. I forget exactly when. But I was scared of the outside. And being me, I was like, well, since I'm afraid of it, I guess I should go and stand in it until I'm no longer afraid. And that's exactly what I did. And I was standing outside in the storm, in nature. And my practice was that I would stand there until I not only no longer felt fear, but had a sense of enjoyment to where I enjoyed it. I reveled it. I loved it, So I stood in the middle of the backyard, which was an open space, in the middle of the storm, experiencing it and having the joy of the experience, of the now moment experience. And then I noticed that there's two lots in the catty corner to my parents' property that were completely undeveloped and still had the old Australian pine. I don't know how many people are familiar with this, but Australian pine was imported to Florida a long time ago to soak up the groundwater. And these trees are very much, they almost look like sentinels. Like if you're in the back of a dark night, like they stand completely straight and have the branches. They're a particular kind of pine and a particular one that looks eerie at nighttime. I can't explain unless you've seen it, especially at nighttime in a storm. Pretty much imagine the scary movies you've seen. Those are Australian pines at nighttime in a storm. And so once again, I was looking at it and I just knew what I had to do. Although this time I looked at it a lot longer than I did the backyard because this was genuinely spooky. And it was like, all right, so I steeled myself for it and entered the Australian pines that were catty corner of my parents' property and walked in them until I was in the middle. And it is amazing how much of a windbreak those things are and also how black they can make it. So I stood there, knees a knocking, trying to first expel the fear and then center in and feel the joy in the present moment. This was much more difficult and took a lot longer. But gradually my eyes adjusted and I still was in the sense of the fear, was almost about ready to let go of the fear, and I looked around and I realized I was surrounded by little miniature crucifixes that somebody had been using this. On reflection, I imagine it was somebody had buried their pets there. They must have had goldfish or frogs or something that proliferated and died at an extremely good rate. Either that or their art project was building scary mini cemeteries in the middle of scary places, at least scary to a child. And so I suddenly realized I'm standing in the middle of what is essentially a graveyard in this place at night in the middle of a storm. And that almost got me. That really almost got me. I almost bolted. I almost bolted then. It was almost a break. But I stood firm and rooted to the spot. And just basically willed myself to experience the moment devoid of fear until I could. The joy in the experience was much longer in coming, because there is a certain beauty to environments like that. There's a certain beauty, but you cannot have any fear whatsoever to experience that beauty. But I was able to see the beauty just in the world around us, because daytime and nighttime were both created by the same universal being. God created both the day and the night. And too much we associate the night with evil, what we don't like, but there is a beauty to it. And it's a beauty that only, jungle cats know, and the owl knows. But there's a beauty to the owl, and there's a beauty to the night. And I was able to stand there till I saw it, including the little sticks in the shapes of crosses all around. And I was able to enjoy it. And then I knelt down. When I finally was able to experience the moment without fear, I knelt down and I put my hand on the ground, where the things were buried, because death is a part of life. It is a part of life. And I think this is the lesson in all of this, is that was to accept the mortal nature of everything, to be able to accept, because the night really is almost like a soliloquy for our own lives. We're born at the dawn, and then the nighttime of our own lives, which we'll all have and we'll all experience, and accepting it all without fear in the now moment, I believe, was what put me on this path. And that it was important in some fashion, because that was I truly feel the beginning, because when I stood up and I walked out of that stand of Australian pine, I felt internally like something had changed and that my life would never be the same. And it was a certainty, like in my bones. And the rest, as they say, is history. All right, cheers. Growing up crazy. Justin, thank you for your time. Much love to all. Ciao.